Hey there guys, what's going on? So it's nearing the end of the week now, and I've got a little bit of some busy stuff coming up here in my schedule. However, before I take off for a couple of days, I want to leave you all with some very interesting new content. Emphasis on all of the varies. The playing field of musical reviews has been, again, a very interesting one so far this week. First, we deeply explored the newly released music of Bob Mould and covered everything to do with his Beauty and Ruin album rather extensively to this point. But while that was one of my bigger and more highly anticipated top cards up my sleeve this week, my goal for right now is to leave you with something even better. Because here, you see, we're going to cover a musician who inevitably starts conversation. A man who creates hype, draws attention, has a tendency to stick his foot deeply down his esophagus at times, and all in all just manages to be flat out and downright, again, interesting. His prior album was actually a footnote of sorts mentioned on my former YouTube page, but now, well, we're just going to do this thing right this time. You see, here today we have the Willy Wonka of vinyl, the Grand Master of unusual creation, the man who constantly is somewhere between looking as though he needs a blood transfusion and as though he were the not-so-distant cousin of Wednesday Addams. This is Jack White, the former White Stripe, the dashing raconteur, the thunderstorm on the sticks of the dead weather, and the current-day solo man of both Blunderbuss and now Lazaretto. And obviously we're going to crack open the wonders of this little thing called Lazaretto here and review the hell out of it for all of you. So let us begin. As the opening slinky grooves of three women slither across my ears to set the initial scene of Lazaretto, I find myself confronted by two initial bursts of feeling. First, that the fevered, up-tempo, blues harem in a modern century vibe is pretty much Jack White in his most elemental, cookie-cutter nutshell of a form. That if there was one thing I could have potentially expected, this was probably going to be something like it at least. But on the other hand of that, this track is so perfectly, brashly Jack White that it's overwhelmingly right. In fact, compared to what would be considered the rockier, more edgy sides of prior effort Blunderbuss, the likes of this, the title track, and instrumental highball stepper blow songs like 16 Saltines right out of the water. They feel less sculpted, more spontaneous, and more like the effort of both sides of White's massively talented bands jamming in a room together, as opposed to just so much overwhelming polish. There's so much more distinct feel of tightness and chemistry that adds an even deeper and more dynamic element to Lazaretto. It makes it feel like White is starting to actually become more comfortable in the skin of what his solo persona truly is. While Blunderbuss seemed to mostly spare us from the louder moments in favor of a quieter and more brooding, country folk-oriented gothic approach, Lazaretto tends the balance in a much more immediately dynamic form. And as a result, it feels like it suffers much less from lagging and dragging down in the middle of the proceedings. Of course, the source material comes from a much different area of White's creative side this time around, but it's personally much more enthralling to see the dance of Jack's explosive guitar riffs play against pianos, snapping drums, and country instruments. Like a dash of the White Stripes against a pinch of something much less punk and a bit more drunk. As for the lyrical side of things, while White cites material he wrote at a much younger age, it's interesting to see how it sort of continues to reflect that sort of darker and lovelorn serious side that has emerged more and more strongly in his recent work. It ably suits the more heavily country sides of songs like Entitlement and Temporary Ground, but in light of White's recent tendency to undercut fellow musicians and people around him, it rings as more than slightly disingenuous to hear him lamenting the very same thing. At that point, I guess it's more about appreciating the story, as opposed to the personality the storyteller has let bleed forth about himself. Because at least when you do that, it becomes easier and easier to enjoy. As usual, White works in his signature measures of fiery, lightning-fast lines of near gibberish, and it highlights the faster songs like the title track, the reggae thump of Black Bat Licorice, and the very Rolling Stones-influenced Just One Drink. While this is the Jack White we've pretty much grown to expect in terms of his sound and methods of experimentation, he always has a way of making it an exciting venture down into his world of country pedals, fast women, faster cars, fast fiddles, blue scenery, and gothic-tinged angels. Though for all the appearance of holy creatures, I think there are quite a few more demons waiting just out of sight beneath the surface. My favorites from this one are, once again, pretty much all the aforementioned songs you heard here. Lazaretto, Highball Stepper, Three Women, Black Bat Licorice, and Temporary Ground deserve to be mentioned once again, while the almost White Moon-esque closer, Wantin' Able, deserves the space to be included as well. Jack White definitely has another solo winner here with Lazaretto. It feels much more comfortable and composed in its themes than Blunderbuss, and it uses those elements to the full and best advantage. While lyrically things can feel like they're a bit one note at times, Lazaretto still manages to come out on top. I give it an 8.6 out of 10. But that's it, and that's all for me here, guys, in my review of Jack White and his brand new album, Lazaretto. Be sure to check out much more of this coverage that I have coming up along with this review. We've got an unboxing, we've got bonus songs, we've got an unboxing in 2 parts, in fact. We've got all kinds of videos to do with Jack White and Lazaretto. It's a big explosion before I go away for a couple of days, so tune into all of that. Keep watching, keep subscribing. I can't thank each and every single one of you enough who even watches 1 single second of any of my videos. Support the ads if you're feeling generous, all of the above. Thank you again, and keep it here for much, much more very, very soon.